Welcome in. It's a beautiful Tuesday morning. Noonan is off today. He does not respect the sort of golf, putting contest golf. He says, I won't do it. But we got Ron Klos, PGA Splits 101 in the house. And it's probably not going to be the longest podcast. We can go do a full hour on the 3M or any of the events. Honestly, you could probably do an hour on this. I wouldn't like it. But these swing season ones might be a little shorter. There's not as much to talk about. The fields are not as good. The courses are not super tricky. I think maybe that's the biggest takeaway from this one. Like, pretty basic course we're facing here down at Jackson Country Club. Hit the ball a mile, putt well on the fast Bermuda, and anybody can win it.
Yeah, and we have a new sponsor after this year, so the old chicken tournament is no more. So interesting to see who the new sponsor will be. But yeah, you summed it up pretty well. It's one of the most nondescript courses on tour. Like, there's just going back and looking over the holes. There's literally not a single hole that like stands out like that you would ever even remember this course for. And like, if you go back and even if you look at the past winners, like, this might be the most unpredictable tournament. Like, when you have everybody from Sergio Garcia to Luke List to Sam Burns, Mackenzie Hughes, just like, you've got bombers, you've got short hitters, you've got great putters, you got horrible putters. So it's it's a toss up. And like you said, the field is just so bland. So it's going to be an interesting week trying to pull some winners out of this one.
Yeah, I don't know. I think everybody has their own little strategy when it comes to building a card for golf outrights or however they're betting this. But I think some people like to cover all their bases where it's just like, hey, this is my favorite bomber. This is my favorite just overall good form guy. This is the guy who's just, I think, is mispriced, and they'll do that. Whereas I know Noonan will do this sometimes. Some people will say, this is my thesis, and I'm betting, the 5 guys that I think fit this thesis the best. I did build a really simple model over on the rabbit hole. I just put driving distance. I put putting for the last 12 months. And then I put form, but I did form in because I used total strokes gained, which can sometimes be a little misleading. I think when you're looking at a bad field like this, you get some of these guys who are like fringe players who made some of the good events, and they're just not going to win some of the good full field events or even play that well compared to a high end field. So I went like average and below in the filters for field strength. Like, how have you played in the last 12 months in average fields or easy weak fields, and put that in? It spit out some wild names. Like, it wasn't just the names at the top. I did have a few that I highlighted, but I mean, number one, it was Ben Griffin and Mackenzie Hughes at the top. But from there, it's like Bo Hustler, number 3, because good putter, been a good year, and he doesn't. I mean, he's probably just an average driver of the ball, so he wasn't super penalized by that. But the names that'll spit out when you do some real simple models like that's funny. Jacob Bridgman. I even put sample size stuff in. Bridgman was high up for me. Patrick Fishburne, which I know he's been getting a lot of love for a few weeks. He's kind of high up there. Although I was surprised when I looked his DraftKings price, 9,400. It's like, oh, he's getting a ton of respect right now for a guy that I haven't really bet much. Mac Meisner, Chandler Phillips, Mike Kim, Chesson Hadley. Like, there were some names up at the top for me when I started punching those in. I don't know. What did you start to use for modeling and key stats when you're looking at a course like this where, distance can help you a lot, but you don't need it to perform if you're throwing darts and the putter's working that week.
Yeah, I focus on more of a general kind of just take a broader view, and I think one of the things I have focused on is obviously this is a very weak field, and when you combine that with it's average 19 under par the last 5 years, so kind of talking about a birdie fest here, and like you said, we kind of talked about that in the intro. There's a lot of guys who have won who are not good putters who just happen to have a good spike putting week. So that's one of the great things I think about the rabbit hole is we have that floor ceiling filter where you can go in there and look and see which players are spiking, especially with Bermuda greens. I think that is one of the sticky things from this course is you have a lot of guys from the southern United States, or either who live down there or who grew up there, and even a guy like Sergio Garcia who has been in the South for a while now in Texas, and so he's played on a lot of these types of Bermuda courses with greens, and so I think that's one of the things to look at for me, and see kind of who spikes, and may not be a great putter, but who has the ability to do that. And so another thing looking at the rabbit hole is the ability to look at how players perform in weak fields, and then you combine that with easy scoring. And so it's kind of a mix of guys who I found, Eric Cole kind of pops in all those things, whether it's putting, whether it's birdie or better percentage, performance in weak fields. And yeah, you got this group of guys who just have not won much, the Maverick McNeelys of the world, Mark Hubbard, a guy who has won, and who is also popping in a bunch of stuff is Taylor Moore. He typically plays very well this time of year in the fall swing, and so yeah, you got some pretty good. I think Taylor Moore's still 60-1, so you got some values out there, and some guys with some actual win equity who have won before. And then you got another group of guys who are just really close to winning. Like I said, the Eric Coles, the Maverick McNeelys of the world. So yeah, I think you can build a pretty decent card this week, just with some of the value you do get in the mid range.
Well, that's a fun thing too. You can do if you just go to the main rabbit hole page on Betsperts Golf and put in 2023 for the year, and then go into the filters and say, "Show me only fall swing golf." You can look at everybody who played golf last fall and how they did this time of year. I mean, it's maybe not something I'd put fully in my model, but you can see like who was a good fall swing golfer. And it's funny, Bo Hosler, number 2 in that. Eric Cole, number 1. Eric Cole not only coming in with form, but Eric Cole was pretty good in the fall. We only show 16 rounds, but still, I mean, that's a third of the fall swing, maybe even more. I mean, I don't know what we all count for fall swing because some of the December tournaments aren't, Shoutling, aren't actual tournaments. You have like the one where everybody brings their kids. You have the mixed gender event as well. So, but yeah, Eric Cole and Bo Haas are popping pretty high. Like you said, God, Mackenzie Hughes is up there as well. There's some strange names that pop in here. Viegas, who honestly had some nice golf during the summer in alt events as well, and Luke List. Luke List is not somebody I'm probably going to bet or have bet, but it's like you said, it's worth looking at some of these splits just to get a feel for, I don't know who takes this time of year seriously. And it's changed with the biggest part of the changes we saw to the golf calendar were if you get to this level, you play in all the signature events. And that's a huge amount of money. That's big. But they did change how much the swing season means. And it always meant something for keeping your statuses. But if you do well in the swing season, you take it seriously, you play a bunch of events, you do well, you are in that second tier and you're going to be in a lot better events during the January to kind of August range. So I think it does matter a little more how you play in these fall events now.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I just pulled up the floor ceiling Bermuda putting, and you got Ben Griffin leads the way. He's gained 18% of his rounds on Bermuda greens. He's gained at least 4 strokes putting. But then you have a guy, an interesting name right below him, Chris Gotterup, who kind of known as obviously one of the bigger hitters on tour. He's the second highest spike putter on Bermuda greens, 24 rounds. So again, not a huge sample size with some of these. Adam Svensson, another guy who has won before on tour. He's got the 4th highest spike putting rate on Bermuda greens. And I don't know if you saw my tweet from yesterday, but I dug into our new finish position, which if you haven't seen that data yet, so just really interesting. I just put in, what did I put? I put Southeast. So any course that's in the Southeast. And I looked at top, what was it? It was top 5 percentage on courses in the Southeast since 2015. So again, Mississippi, Southeast, most of these are going to have Bermuda greens. And wouldn't you know it, Henrik Norlander, who is getting a lot of steam this week because he has the best course history here out of anyone. He also has the highest top 5 rates. 14% of his, and that's a good sample size too. We got 43 PGA starts. He's finishing the top 5 14% of the time on Southeastern courses. And so just to kind of, and that's what's so cool about that data is, you see a guy with, he's got a good course history, but then you go and see, wait, he not only does he play good at Country Club of Jackson, but he also plays very well in the Southeast on these types of courses. And so, yeah, just seeing something like that, these are the kind of gems that this new data can kind of give to people.
He's one too that just gets a little underrated based on the events he plays. I don't think people understand, like, in an event like this, he's clearly above a lot of this competition just based off the body of his work. And it's funny that you mentioned Goddard. He's one that I highlighted in, like I said, I made a real simple model that was just form, driving distance. Obviously, driving distance is doing a lot of the carrying for him, but his putting numbers, like you said, were surprisingly good. And it was a decent enough sample size. And his form was top third, more like top quarter of the field here. So Chris Goddard is probably making the card for me. I don't think he's maybe somebody I've ever bet. I did get to watch him at the 3M once doing just warming up on the driving range. He wore a shirt that was a little too tight that day too. By God, just a man's man, just like a fucking lumberjack. He was hitting.
Yeah, and
he
got that. Oh yeah, for sure. And he got that first win at Myrtle Beach. And so, we've seen guys kind of take off here in the fall swing. We've seen guys win multiple times. And so wouldn't surprise me at all if he's contending on Sunday.
Yeah, some other guy. I did have Hosler circled, Michael Kim a little bit. I've seen him play some decent golf, especially in, lower end fields. I mean, he can definitely still win. He's got equity. Patrick Fishburne, I haven't quite solved. I want to dig in a little more on him, but I wanted to ask you about Chesson Hatley, who has surprisingly good form over the course of like 12 months is what I looked at. I had to go back and actually look at how he played and some of his, his finish summary. And, it wasn't great over parts of the summer, but like, again, and when I was looking at easy fields, he was top 10 at Myrtle Beach. He played well at some of these other, crappier events. He wasn't terrible at the John Deere. Not great at the Pro Cure. I'm not sure what exactly his putting splits are in Bermuda, but his putting numbers were good too. And then if you look back at last year, it was, he top 10 at Mayakoba, top 10 at Shriners, had some decent results in last year's swing season. He's got a long ass price.
He's one of the streakiest guys on tour. Like, do you think he's gonna take off and then he goes back? And yeah, he's got a pretty good profile. I think when I look at my model here, he's in the top 15 of this field. He's the 6th best Bermuda putter. Speaking to the weakness of the field, like he is in the top 20 in form. If you look at the last 12 months, and if you look at things like birdie or better, bogey avoidance, he is in the top 30 in both of those as well. So, yeah, I think he's a decent play here at a long price, especially.
Yeah, and I think that goes to speak to how you should be betting outrights anyway, especially this time of year. Like, if the guy finishes 9th, or if he finishes 145th, it pays the same. I guess unless you have some each way 10 places. But, you are looking for somebody who has some of that streaky ability. Like you said, you have the spike putting week stuff that you can look at in the rabbit hole. You're looking for those guys that have the ability to play, 4 really good rounds and maybe are especially, some value I think you're going to get on some of these guys that are streaky because he has a ton of miscuts up and down the summer. But at the same time, he went out and put a couple top 10s on the board last fall. He's played well in some of these alt events. So streaky guys, big numbers. That's kind of the card. I haven't fully shopped everything around yet for prices, but I think Chesson Hadley's probably making it because just, I start to look at, in the rabbit hole, we have the DraftKings prices. So you can kind of get a feel for where they're going to be in the odds board. It's like, wow, he's probably making the card based on where I have him in the model.
Yeah, and I've got a couple guys on the top of mine that I posted in our Discord yesterday. I think Nick Dunlap, he was at 35. I'm pretty sure he's in the 20s right now.
Yeah,
But I
he got
think
beat up.
that was I think that was a little mistake leaving him out there. I mean, the guy's won twice already. He's proven himself. And then Steven Yeager, who, he had that first win earlier in the year. Went through a little rough stretch there, but I think this is really a good course for him where he can kind of blast away off the tee with his new distance that he's gained over the last year. And I think 40-1 is what I got, but I think those are two players who I think I would expect to kind of be near the top of the leaderboard, especially with the field strength this week.
We talked a lot about, we've talked driving distance. We've talked just general like scoring metrics, putting on Bermuda. Was there anything else you used in your model or you put in the article, maybe further down the list, some sneakier stats that people should be looking at, key stats for this week, other than just drive the ball well, score?
Yeah, I looked at par five scoring. This is a course where you have your full complement of par fives. They are actually one of the few parts of the course that are a little more challenging than you would expect. We got 3 of these par fives are over 580 yards. And so, just looking up, I did put that in the model, and I use par 5 birdie or better percentage, which I think obviously you want to birdie those par fives, especially if you're gonna keep up in the scoring that we're gonna see this week. So yeah, there's some guys here at the top. Some of you already mentioned. Patrick Fishburne is top 5. S.H. Kim is a guy who just kind of randomly pops on certain weeks. He's a guy who not the best approach player in the world. He kind of makes up for it in the other parts of his game, but he is the best player in this field. If you look back over the past year, par 5 birdie or better percentage. So I think he's a guy who is kind of trending up for me. Even going into next year, I think he might be able to pull out one of these wins here in one of these weak fields. But yeah, guys like Sam Stevens, Keith Mitchell, Dunlap's there, Chan Kim, Norlander's top 12, all those guys kind of in the mix there. Mark Hubbard, par 5 birdie or better. So I think that's something I'm always going to look at, especially when you have to take advantage and you have to score on those holes. And then another one I ran on the model that you can very easily do on the rabbit hole is looking at courses as far as courses that are similar in length, similar skills to win. And so I plugged those courses into the rabbit hole. And again, interesting to see the guys kind of at the top. Taylor Moore was kind of by far and away the top player on similar courses to just Country Club of Jackson, Justin Lauer, Eric Cole. And then you have this, group of guys we've already talked about: Yeager, McNeely, Dunlap, Johnny Vegas, Matt Kuchar, Mackenzie Hughes, kind of round out the top 10. So yeah, that's kind of I'm not getting too intricate this week, but par 5s and looking at some comp course stuff I think is always valuable.
Vegas is somebody too that he doesn't even have to pop in my model, and I'm excited about him, especially again with the distance. This and how we separate the courses. You go by course length by yards per par. Like you divide out the yardage by the par, and this one's what 103.6 according to your stat sheet. But some of them don't always play as long. There's that number, which is a number, but some of them don't play as long based on where the landing zones are, if there's just no forced layups, if there's no dog legs that force different kind of shots. What do you have this set at for as far as like driver usage? Is it just because I did kind of take a quick look at the course? I know you've dug in a little more. Is there any spots where people are going to be like, I might take my 3 here, or I might hit an iron here off the tee? It's just straight up iron or straight up drivers across the board until we find a par 3.
Yeah, there's a few holes where drivers or 3 woods. Just kind of thinking back, there's water on 5 holes. I'm pretty sure from what I remember, there's maybe only 1 forced layup. So this is a course where, guys have even said it in past interviews that, the rough, even the rough, it's a mix of Bermuda and Zoysia. So, Zoysia is much less penal than Bermuda. So when you combine those two together, it kind of, you typically on Bermuda, you get flyers and, you can get those knucklers out of the rough. You don't know what to expect. Very unpredictable. It's really not the case at this course. And so guys really are not afraid to just blast away with driver. So this is definitely a driver heavy course. And yeah, there's really, fairways are narrow, but there's really, let's see what I have for dog legs. I think there's only four. There's only four holes that have dog legs, and they're what I call skinny dog legs. So there's really no danger off the tee from hazards, rough, even having to play angles based on the course or the whole shape. So yeah, it's pretty much, and that's why I think we see driving. When you look at Cameron Champ, Sergio, Luke List, even Sebastian Munoz was a big driver. I think all those guys kind of show that you kind of can blast away here and take advantage of that.
Yeah, the only other thing I was thinking about is I want to, and you talked about it a little bit. How did you approach separating approach players here? Because it doesn't matter even if we're at a birdie fest where distance matters. Like approach is still key. Like every course, every stop, you can't win if you're not playing well on approach. You have big greens, less than penal rough, pretty easy to hit fairways. And I mean, I want to say greens and regulation percentage is pushing close to 70% here anyway. So how do you separate guys when you're trying to figure it out when greens and regulation is so high at a course like this? And by high, I mean just easy. Everybody is hitting these greens. I know some people do like to look at proximity in cases like that because, hey, this is a green in regulation that you have no chance of making the putt. When you do have these big greens, like sometimes it does pay to look at how close you're actually hitting it then.
Yeah, there's a couple ways you can approach it, and like one of the ways that I'll typically do is I'll look at just last 8 rounds, last 12 rounds on approach just to see like who's coming in really hot. But you really can't do that this week because you got the Procore was what 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, and then there was another break before then. So you can't really look at extreme or a recent approach this week, and so you can just looking at the range as far as the number of shots hit. You got 34% coming from kind of wedge range, 100 to 150. So I'll look at that bucket, and then you've got because of the lengthy par fives, 18% of approaches are coming from over 250 yards. So I'll look at that 200 plus bucket as well. And just a little thing coming here. We do have in the rabbit hole, we're going to add 250 plus on approaches. I know we have 200 plus now. Most sites have just 200 plus, but we're going to narrow it down and break it down even further. So for some of these courses like this, where you have just a large number of shots coming from 250. So I'll look at those ranges. And so I think, yeah, we have the ability in the rabbit hole to look at overall proximity as well. And you could even plug in, with the green sizes, you can plug in, even though they're kind of average here. But another thing I'll do is where you have a high where greens and regulation is very easy. You could actually plug that into the rabbit hole and check that easy box. And you can look at see, okay, well, who gains the most on approach when it is very easy to hit the green in regulation. And so I think that's just the rabbit hole just gives you so much flexibility and so many options for how you want to look at it.
Yeah, I suppose I hadn't thought about that. Just splitting it by, hey, everybody's hitting the greens. How many strokes are you actually gaining though? Like, you're hitting the green, everyone else is, but you're making your putts because they're closer. You're making those putts because you're better. You're making more pars and birdies because you're around the green is better as well. So probably a good way to look at it. And then, yeah, as you mentioned, we have some other events. I did want to put this on here too. $30 a month to get in, do all that stuff. Not a bad month to do it, because there is actually a bunch of events. We have another chunk of them in November, but this is a nice part of the year where you have a fun one in Utah and then Shriners and Zozo right after it. Obviously, we still have our deal with Rebet. This is $10 for the year. You saw me highlight 4 tournaments. This covers all of them. This will get you through, next October, guys. So $10. The details for that are in the description of the YouTube and the podcast. It's buy $10 in Rebet cash when you sign up using our code. We'll just send you an email with a code. You get a unique code for a full free season, which seems maybe not a priority right now, but you'll be thanking yourself come January, come Masters time, and it will not probably be an option in January to take advantage of this. So take advantage of that now if you want to get the rabbit hole usage for the whole next year. And then, before we rip, I don't know, do you have any quick President's Cup thoughts? We didn't really touch on last week. We usually touch on last week, but it wasn't a big betting event. I laid the spread, the 3.5. I wish I'd have put more on that. That was kind of a no-doubter. I almost laid the -5.5 on Sunday morning. Looking at that and looking at the matchups, I'm like, God, probably win by 6-7 here. This feels like, because I originally thought I was going to bet the other side of that on Sunday morning when it was going to be, something like 8. Friday, probably put the kibosh on that with the reverse sweep for the U.S. in the second day, but it was still a nice betting event. I had Morikawa to be the top scorer. They got chopped to shit, but it's better than losing.
Yeah, if I ever have to hear that INT chant again, I was losing my mind. I had to mute the volume after a while. No, it kind of went how I thought it was going to go. I think most people thought. The U.S. just kind of has their moments when it comes to, the whole four ball thing, and then just Sunday winners, Sunday singles. That's usually their time, and they kind of took off like I expected them to on Sunday. But yeah, I had 4 to, I think I had the margin of the U.S. by 4-6. So just missed out on that one. I don't think
too. Yeah, I thought that felt pretty good.
Yeah. So no surprises there. I think, the whole Tom Kim, I think, I know some people didn't like that, but I think, you almost need some of that at the President's Cup because it's so one-sided, and so you need some of these other storylines where it's with a little bit of animosity, whether it was fake or not. But yeah,
that is the fun part about any of the team events. I saw a tweet I hadn't really thought about, and it really got me thinking. And it's one of those things where you're so used to the way things are that you don't really think about things like this until somebody else thinks outside the box. But he said, like, singles shouldn't be on Sunday. He says singles they're less fun than any of the team stuff. It's like that's how it is, and that's how it is in the Ryder Cup. But he's like, a good foursomes on Sunday to decide it would be way better, because a lot of times you end up with these 12 single matches, and maybe the last 5 don't even matter in some cases. Whereas, if we end up with a close event in the Ryder Cup and you had foursomes out there, or even alt shot, I think I'd go with the better ball stuff. But he said that would be better, and I thought about that. I'm like, God, this guy might be right. I'm just so used to Sunday being singles because that's how it is. And you're right about the animosity. It just adds a little juice. And boy, the President's Cup needs some juice because it's going up against football, and it's just not the Ryder Cup.
Yeah, totally agree. And maybe they should mix it up. Just do something different to be different from the Ryder Cup. I think I kind of like that.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. So, all right. Well, like I said, I'll kind of figure out where my full card goes. But like Goddard, Hadley, Hosler, those guys are making it. I had one more circled here before. Vegas's price is a little low for me, but Hosler, Hadley, and Chris Goddard are 100% on the card. I don't know how big I want to make a card for the Chicken Farms one, but I'll probably have 4 or 5. I'll finalize that over the next day or two. You can find all of Ron's stuff in the Discord at betspertsgolf.com. You can follow us on Twitter at betspertsgolf. Yeah, just Betsperts Golf. Follow him at PGA Splits 101. If you watch this on YouTube, please leave a thumbs up. That would be nice. We also would appreciate it if you hit the subscribe button. A lot of people who watch this every week are not subscribed. I can see those stats. So you don't have to hit the bell and get notifications, but subscribers do help us along. And like I said, if you have any questions on any of the discount deals we have, you can reach out to us in the DMs. We're always happy to help you, and we'll catch you next week for the inaugural BlackRock Classic. See you guys.